In 2008, a neuroscientist named John Cacioppo put a group of healthy adults through a simple experiment. He took blood samples. He measured their immune systems. He tracked their cortisol levels. He scanned their brains. Then he made half of them lonely, not isolated, not locked away, just lonely. 3 days later, he took the same measurements again. What he found in the blood work changed the way science thinks about human connection forever. The lonely group's immune systems had shifted. Their inflammatory markers were up. Their antiviral responses were down. Their cortisol, the stress hormone, was elevated in ways that matched people under sustained physical threat. Their brains, when scanned, had begun to process social information differently. They were more alert to threat, more suspicious of strangers, more likely to interpret a neutral face as hostile. 3 days. That is all it took. Cacioppo spent the next 2 decades studying this. He was not studying sadness. He was not studying introversion. He was studying what happens to a human body when it goes without something it was built to require. And what he found was that loneliness is not a feeling. It is a biological state, one your body treats the same way it treats hunger, thirst, or pain. Let's go back further. For 300,000 years, the worst thing that could happen to a human being was not a predator. It was being alone. A lone human on the African savanna was a dead human. No group meant no fire. No fire meant no sleep. No sleep meant no survival. The humans who felt the sharpest pain at separation, the ones whose bodies screamed loudest when the group pulled away, were the ones who fought hardest to stay connected. And they survived, and we are their descendants. That pain has a name. It is loneliness. And your body still runs the same code. When Cacioppo's team looked at the DNA of chronically lonely people, they found something that still surprises researchers today. The genes responsible for inflammation, the ones that activate when your body thinks it is under attack, were dialed up. The genes responsible for antiviral response were dialed down. The body, sensing social disconnection, had shifted into threat mode. It was preparing for injury. It was bracing for attack. Because for 300,000 years, being alone meant attack was coming. Here is what that does to you over time. Chronically lonely people have a 26% higher risk of early death, a 29% higher risk of heart disease, a 32% higher risk of stroke. In 2015, a researcher named Julianne Holt-Lundstad ran a meta-analysis of 148 studies covering more than 300,000 people. Her conclusion: the health impact of social isolation is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The same researcher published a follow-up 3 years later with 3.4 million people. The conclusion held: nobody put a warning label on living alone. But here's the part that makes loneliness different from almost every other health risk. It hides. It actively conceals itself inside the person experiencing it. When Cacioppo studied lonely people's social cognition, he found that chronic loneliness rewires how the brain processes other people. Lonely brains become hypervigilant. They scan for threat faster. They interpret ambiguous signals as hostile more often. They expect rejection before it happens. And here is the cruel part. That hypervigilance makes people more likely to pull back, to not reach out, to assume the invitation won't come, to sit with a phone in their hand and not send the message. Loneliness at a biological level is self-sealing. The loneliest people often look fine. They hold jobs, they post online, they smile when they run into neighbors. Cacioppo called this the difference between objective isolation and subjective loneliness. You can be surrounded by people and be profoundly alone. You can live by yourself and be genuinely connected. What matters is not proximity. What matters is whether the people around you actually see you. In 2023, the United States Surgeon General published a report on the loneliness epidemic. He called it one of the most urgent public health crises of our time. Rates of loneliness in the U.S. had doubled since the 1980s. In the UK, the government had appointed a minister for loneliness. Across the developed world, the number of people reporting that they had no close friends had tripled in 30 years. We built a world that is more connected than any world in human history. We are more reachable than any humans who ever lived. And we are lonelier. That is not an accident. It is an architecture problem. The environments we built optimized for speed, efficiency, and privacy. Suburbs designed around cars, not walking. Open-plan offices that create proximity without intimacy. Social media platforms that reward performance over honesty. We hollowed out the spaces where connection used to happen naturally. The front porch, the market, the town square, the gathering after the funeral, and replaced them with frictionless convenience. Convenience does not keep your inflammatory markers down. Cacioppo, before he died in 2018, said something that stayed with the researchers who worked with him. He said loneliness is like hunger. Hunger is not a flaw. It is a signal. It tells you something your body needs. The answer to hunger is not to shame the person who is hungry. It is not to tell them to try harder or want food less. The answer is food. Loneliness is the same signal, and it needs the same kind of answer. The research on what actually reduces loneliness is remarkably consistent. It is not more contact. Lonely people often have plenty of contact. It is contact where you are genuinely known, where someone tracks how you are doing over time, where you can be honest about something real without the conversation ending. It is the kind of relationship that costs something to maintain, the kind where showing up is not optional. There is a study that researchers at Brigham Young University have been running for decades. It looks at what predicts survival in older adults, not diet, not exercise, not even smoking when you control for everything else. The single strongest predictor of whether someone is alive in 10 years is whether they have close social relationships. Not many relationships, close ones. The number that keeps coming up in the data is 3. 3 people who actually know you. That is enough. 3. Most of us can name 3 people. The question Cacioppo spent his life asking is whether those people actually know us, or whether we have gotten so good at performing okay that we have forgotten how to be otherwise. You do not have to be isolated to be lonely. You just have to be unseen. And the body keeps score. It keeps it in cortisol and inflammatory markers and immune response. It keeps it in how fast you flinch when a stranger's expression is unclear. It keeps it in whether you wake up at 3 a.m. with a feeling you cannot name, but that sits in your chest like something is wrong. Your nervous system has been tracking your social safety since before you were born. It does not care that you are busy. It does not care that you have been meaning to call. It does not care that it has been a weird year. It cares whether the people in your life actually see you. That is what John Cacioppo found in the blood work. And that is what has not changed in 300,000 years. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today and watching completely. Building this community means everything to me, and your support genuinely helps the channel grow. If you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. And drop a thought in the comments. You might be surprised who's reading it.